Hello everyone, this is Iron Mark 3, and it's been a while since I've done this, but this is an episode of What You Doing? Because I got asked the question finally, and Nathan actually said that he wanted a video. Though what he doesn't know is that it was a choice between recording this video and actually going and recording the next part of my series on From the Depths, since that's what I was working on. But yes, I could stand looking at the ocean just like this. I'm sure that would be lovely. Or I could turn around, and this is what I have been doing. I've been working on vehicle designs for use in my actual From the Depths campaign. Wasn't quite done either, but still. Let's give you the rundown, since this is actually I think my first proper... Let's jump off here first so I can get a stable viewpoint. This is my first proper time trying to discuss the designs, I think, since I stopped building them on the flying campaign. So the ocean's quite deep. So yeah, let's get started off, shall we? We have 2.5 brand new crafts here. There's one there, my first completed warship. There's one back there, which I think is quite interesting. This one, which is partly finished. I was building it when I was asked the question. And those of you who've actually watched my most recent campaign video will recognise this. It's the reclamation hub, but actually completed, rather than the partly built one which was used in the campaign so far. But first, something minor. Props to you if you recognise this little thing. This is the Scorpion. I built it as a small autonomous attack craft, which could be controlled manually, but the first time I deployed it against a Dark Onyx fortress, it got blown to shreds very quickly. So what I've done with it is I've mounted shields, so now it's got forward and side mounted shielding, which should give it some much better protection. And to support this, I've actually upgraded the engine a little bit as well. I don't think I actually looked in depth into this design when I first showed it in the campaign, but it is actually built making use of these side to upwards links to give it some extra cylinders. I found I actually left a cylinder out of the design by accident. It only had 3 cylinders in it, so it's a bit underpowered. So I added in the 4th cylinder, and I also expanded the carburetors and the fuel tanks, so it's got more of those, it's got more power on it now. And I also took out the exhausts, strangely enough, and replaced them with additional carburetors and fuel tanks, because the exhausts only seem to do anything for efficiency, I've noticed. But you can get a lot more power if you just don't use them. I'm sure that'll be changed at some point, but that's how it is right now. The original output was something like 40 power, but now it's running at 212 with only a slight increase in size. So yeah, fun times for the Scorpion. It should be a bit more useful now, and it's not changed the price overly much either. It's also got a couple of thrusters in the side as well, these super propellers, which actually lets it turn a lot more readily. Where is it? There it is. It still suffers from the same problems it had before, being such a light craft. That can't exactly be helped. But in general use, I think it is actually a more rounded and more survivable craft, at least against cannons. And it turns faster as well. So let's move on to the next item here, which is this massive vessel. Actually no, let's not do that. Let's first give you a proper look at the reclamation hub, the big fortress up there, because it has had some significant upgrades since it last appeared in the campaign. Okay, I'll park this vehicle here. Give me back my controls, thank you. Oopsie. Yeah, it's a little bit awkward there. Now then, the hub. The bulk of what is here was already present in its previous incarnation, but there are some quite wide-ranging upgrades as well. First off, is these side pods were not actually present in the prototype that you saw, and that's because I found the engine capacity, despite being so high at 14,000, was not enough. So these pods here actually house additional engines, big ones too. If I run down to the engine block, wherever that is, I think it's near the top somewhere. Yes, there it is, tucked in behind the shields. Each of these outputs nearly 5,000 power, so that's added an extra 10,000 energy roughly to the entire fortress's output, and it needs it. It really does. Second thing, from building this warship over here, I worked out some key rules for the shield generators, and that is if you have a high output shield, you want it to be as close to the generator as possible, because distance on the shield generators actually multiplies how much energy it requires. So with a big one like this, a strength 10, it was originally a strength 5, but I actually doubled it, and I reduced the outer shield layer to a strength 4 instead of a strength 5, and I swapped them around as well. So originally the inner shield was coming from this generator, now it comes from this one instead, and despite that, these two shields actually take the same amount of power as the original shields did. So that is actually quite a significant boost in anti-cannon defense. I've added 4 targeting mainframes to try and help the cannons, secondary armaments, defend it, which is good. I've modified the point defense systems. They now have increased number of defensive lasers, which is all too well and good. They still have these original cores, which I've actually extended by reworking it to get an extra block of length in, give them a bit more power. And then I've actually connected them to these here, which are new, and these are actually additional beam lasers, which are 2 beams here connecting into a single laser coupler here, and then just feeds into the entire array. I've linked them around using these laser transceivers, so the entire defensive AMS system is now powered and controlled from a single source. That means the entire system can pump out the entire strength it's got into any incoming missiles. Should be a bit more useful. Before and in testing it was absolutely rubbish, and it was still pulse based back then as well. So yeah, you know, that big open gap that was in here is now gone because I filled it in, and what I filled it in with is, well, this, a massive bank of laser systems. Now, do you remember me saying when talking about the prototype that I intended to use a laser based system? I have. The laser system feeds up here, it all circles into this central point, which goes up here to this, which then feeds straight upwards into this. This is the primary laser cannon of this fortress, and it is quite a nasty one at that, but I'll get to that in a second. And the other big improvement really is it now has shielding on top, so shells can't arc down over the side shields and just get straight into it. Admittedly the shields are only 1 thick, so they are single thickness, unlike the sides, but they are strength 10. So, no, sorry, strength 7.5, that's enough for most armor piercing. Should give a lot of protection. I didn't have the spare capacity for strength 10, believe it or not. I've extended the hull, so these turrets here are now smooth, and these are also smooth into the laser cannon when it's at rest. The laser cannon is side mounted, surprisingly enough, because it's sideways. If you look at the direction of the fortress's build, that couldn't be helped because the turrets were on the sides as well. So that entire thing just swivels around when it comes time to start blowing things up. Lastly, I have added crystal growth systems on here. This thing will now generate, I think it's, what was it? Yeah. This thing will generate 20, 40, 60, 160 crystals in its growth vats because it's got 8 of them, just positioned around the bottom like that. And it's also got these build and repair systems on here, so it can now service and maintain nearby vessels. You can actually build scrap out of both sides of it, because it was in symmetry mode when I built it. Complete accident there, but I don't mind it in the least. There's also this fortress control system here, at the back of the fortress. It's just tucked in there for any adjustments I wanted to make, which is lovely. And that brings me up to the laser cannon. To give this long range and accuracy, I actually stretched it from the turret mount, which is here in the centre, all the way back here. I also took in an extra laser, which is where all the laser's piercing effects come from. It really does pierce quite hard. And then it's just this one massive barrel that runs the entire length and down to this end here. It also has maximum field of fire as well, so it can engage distant aircraft, boats, anything that really gets in its way, which is quite nice. And as a final feature, the grave which I captured in the campaign, I had a look at that, and I took a leaf out of its book, so to speak. And this turret actually includes a quartet of anti-aircraft lasers. Now these don't have the range or the accuracy of the main cannon, which is anti-ship, but it's designed so if an aircraft or balloon craft is flying above the fortress, these things will just absolutely pepper it with rapid laser shots. It will deplete the beam quite quickly, but, well, any large craft above it, it's going to be full of holes by the time it becomes an issue. And lastly, to give you an idea of that, where is it? Beam, here we go, yeah. At the moment, this pulse laser does 3,800 damage, has 11 armor piercing, which is a bit nuts, and has a range of 71 kilometers. Now, when firing just the anti-ship laser, it sustains its range at roughly 30 kilometers. That's how quickly it can recharge it. So that is pretty darn good. Also does some major damage as well. I can just very quickly show you what it's like. I'm down here. Yeah, let's boost up on top of the tower. It'll take me 2 jumps because it's a big thing. Yeah, see, I've got control of these systems. Look at that. The entire fortress, sorry, the entire cannon is just swinging around. And it does actually have its own shielding as well to help protect it. It's not the fastest firing pulse though, it's only got dual Q switches instead of quad. But that's because I wanted to maintain some range while still having a decent rate of fire, but it still does a ton of damage. And then, if I point upwards, as you can see, 4 beams going off, just to make life bad for anything above. Even better, single beam there, and then anti-aircraft beams there, so they're actually perfect for perfect coverage as far as that is concerned. Last thing to do on this, I didn't show you before, but these are the cannons, and there's a reason I'm showing you this. 3,000 ammo, 3,710 recoil, 23 ammo use, deals 514 damage, 100 explosive damage, reloads in 0.23, which is as fast as it can go. I found you can't actually get refire below that, so you know. Quite simple, it's a simple wooden hull around the side, and then the cannon is built symmetrically within that, with all of its ammunition supplies and things above and below. So it's almost pure cannon, this thing. But yeah, that is it for the reclamation hub. All I can really say about it. And that brings us very neatly to this thing. This is the Warspite, as I've called it. And this is a full-fledged warship, but it was born from the idea of taking the cannons from the reclamation hub, their secondary cannons, and mounting them as the primary weapons on an actual combat ship. And this is the result. It's got 2 forward-facing cannons, which is what I was going with at first, but then as I started extending the design, I realised that there was potential for a 3rd cannon mounted on the back, which makes this vessel especially suited for broadside action. Because they're ship-based, these cannons have actually been modified compared to the ones found on the hub. For a start, the recoil was throwing even a ship this big around quite easily. So I have I've extended the barrels. They have more range. They're a lot more accurate. And I've also included these recoil suppression barrels, which has reduced it significantly. The other change is I've mostly taken out the explosive ammunition. These things are now much more focused on armor piercing and ammunition supply. But despite those changes, these turrets still have serious ammunition problems in any kind of prolonged fight. They're just not built for a long fight. Other features of this ship are, it is a catamaran style design, as you can see, twin hulls. It has, like the Scorpion, it has side-mounted propellers for turning. It has a great deal of rear-mounted ones. This is actually the most stable craft I've ever made in terms of speed. Well, second most stable actually at this point. But this thing can move and it won't tip itself over. It has laser detectors and laser point defences, because this is the ship I realised on that that missiles can punch through the shields and they can be a serious hazard. So this is my attempt at stepping up the anti-missile laser system, which it has here, running along inside the hull for quite a bit of its length actually, and that is just purely the anti-missile system connected to each side. But there you go, 264 damage, 5 armor piercing. The range is not so good, only about 3 kilometers, but it is only a close-in defense system and that's all it's supposed to do. This thing also has these heavy metal sections built into the sides, which houses ammunition in this one and fuel in this one down here, so any serious explosions, they'll just breach these side containers and not really damage the main core of the ship. It has some repair systems here. It has some well, it should have some remote repair systems. Where are those? Huh, I've forgotten to put the remote repair systems on, it seems. Whoops. Oh well. I'll just I can't believe I forgot to put those on. Compact repair tentacles. I thought I had put these into it, but still, seems I didn't. So let's see, can I, don't forget the mirror. I'll just put that in there. So there's a couple in there. And let's put a couple into the roof. There we go. So yeah, it can do some repair work on neighbouring ships now. It was supposed to be able to do that anyway, but I forgot. You know, as you do. Anyway, that's the forward cannon housing just there. Just on the front there with those 2 cannons. Here is where the control room was. It used to be the ammo and fuel processing areas as well. But then I realised heat seekers were just pounding straight into it and blowing it up, which was an instant kill for this ship, sadly. So, you know. I just I tore those out and reinforced it a bit with some metal plating. Just in there. It's got some repair supplies, it's got the AI system. But that is really just the control seat there, inside this bulkhead of light alloy and metal protection. Behind here is the power plant of this craft. It is quite massive. It's actually 2 engines, one of which is upside down to help save space. Let's see, that they are back mounted, I think. Well, they're not, they're front mounted. Here we go. No, that's not it. Here we go. Yeah, this engine is rated at 4,200. The one above it is slightly larger. There we go. And that is rated at 4,400. But if you notice it, they are actually so close together like that, because I put a block there. I had this one mounted upside down, and then I had this one the right way up, right next to each other, really. So it is quite a convoluted engine design. But there isn't any gap between them, pretty much. That more or less covers it for this design. Oh yeah, I was thinking about including a missile system at the back here, and I did actually build a version of this, which included a missile system at the back. I tried it, but I couldn't get it working to my satisfaction, and it drained the entire ammunition supply of this craft for a single volley. It was a 16 tube, 6-length missile system. Very heavy, but ultimately not worth it, so I reverted to a slightly older version. I can also go inside this craft, or I could if it wasn't acting up a little bit. Just let me go forward, please, thank you. Yeah, here we go. Inside my ship, there's the AI system, tucked away in the core of the craft. Then through this door here, we have the incredibly cramped but heavily armoured control room. And this is the Warspite, which is pretty big. Fairly mobile as well, actually. But here you go. It says mobile, but it's nothing compared to the next ship. Today I only refined this craft like I did with the Scorpion. I just did some finishing touches. I added the side bulges onto there, gave it the armouring. You know, little updates like that. But this craft is really more of a slow, heavy hitter, very tough. And that's about all it does. I can show you the cannons if you want. Yes, designed for broadsiding. All 3 cannons turn, and then it is a case of rapid firing all over the place. And because of the reduced recoil, which is, by the way, only about a quarter of that's found on the Fortress guns, it really doesn't rock around much at all, so it can just keep moving. Sadly, the engines are a bit on the noisy side. But oh well, you can't have everything, can you? Yeah. Okay, next up, I was only planning to do a little bit of touching up in the designer today, but I've spent like 3 or 4 hours in it already. I kind of lose myself as I go around. But it did result in a couple of new crafts. The entrance is just around here. This is a brand new one completely built today, something like that. And this one is the Wayfarer. It is also a Catamaran design, but it's built as a much lower, much lighter craft. It doesn't have any forward shielding at all. It's got side propellers on it, so I can turn as soon as I find the right key. Here we go. Yeah, bit here, bit here. It doesn't actually have a reverse, despite having a key prompt for it, and there's a very good reason for that. It's also very lightly armed, as you'll notice. It only uses simple weapons. It's got, on each side, it's got 2 banks of 4 large cannons each, so that's 8 total, and it's also got a quartet of simple missiles. So it's not really anything special in the firepower department, though they are fully AI controlled. So, as you can see, pretty nice. It does have some basic shielding only on the sides and on top. That is pretty tough though. I think it's strength 7, isn't it? Or is it strength 8? Where is it? There we go. Strength 8, yeah. So it can resist most armor piercing values in a side-on fight, but it's again nothing special. Until you get back here. This is why it's such a low slung design, and why it doesn't have a reverse, because it doesn't actually have propellers for its forward propulsion. This is a jet boat. It runs on jet engines. Just give it a little bit of thrust. There we go. Whoops, nearly. But yeah, this thing is nuts in terms of its speed. Now let's just show you this. I bounced the weight very carefully, so it shouldn't tip up. If it does, it's probably because of the recording. But there we go. I'll just give it some welly. Yeah, it shouldn't do that. Again, I think it's because of the recording. But in normal operation, it wouldn't tip up like that. It would actually stay straight. I think it's because the recording affects the physics. Hang on, let's take a quick look inside and see about its weight positioning. Weight positioning. It is slightly on the low side. That's what's causing that problem. So let's balance that out. Unlike other crafts, this one actually has lead blocks up high rather than down low. And the reason for that is this centre of mass, I have been very careful to get it roughly behind the jet engines. Because as you saw, there can be serious tipping problems if you're not careful with it. Will you work now? Almost. Yeah, it's tipping down a bit too much. It shouldn't be doing that. But aside from this, in testing, this craft was actually hitting about 53 in speed compared to my normal boats, which can hit about 5 or 6 usually, 8 if I'm lucky. So yeah, this thing is just a little bit faster, and that is what it's supposed to do. It gets there fast. It circles fast. Are you going to do properly? Yeah, Fraps is messing up the drag settings on this, so it's not working quite as it's supposed to. Right, I'm still already a long way from where I was. Despite this thing not working right. Yeah, main balance is on these things here. I built it as a skimmer kind of thing, so it's supposed to not have very much in the water. That's also why it's so light in terms of arms and armour, with only those side-borne shields on it. But honestly, when working properly, it moves so fast it doesn't really need it, because it can just outturn normal cannons usually, and missiles have a hard time tracking it, so it doesn't really need that much. In a way, it's also a form of fast transportation. Like, I remember the earlier problem I had of not being able to go back into a fight because there was nothing there to spawn to. Something like this could get there quite quickly, because that's what it does. It goes quick. Yeah. Anyway, on to the last thing. That worked quite well, getting around there. Yeah. Now let's just get out of this thing. Get the thing. Oh, here's the design for. I can't get out. Yeah. Let's pull out that seat. Give it a new seat. There. There you go. Right. My other thing is this. Again, it's focused on a couple of holes dipping into the water rather than one big hole, which seems to be a theme with my designs recently. And it's only partially complete. I was starting to work on this when I was asked the question. But this is the manifested heavy construction ship. As I noted in the campaign, I wanted something that could build fast, repair fast, and that is this thing, really. It doesn't have any propulsion at the moment, it's not going to have any weaponry, but as you can see, big hollows in those two main ones, and at the back here is the engine. It's kind of like the Scorpion. It's mounted upside down, but it's also making use of these left, right to up connectors to get some extra cylinder into it, giving it a slightly more vertical profile. But this engine generates actually 664, which is pretty good for that size and more than enough for this craft. I haven't decided on if I want to try this with jets like the Wayfarer. It is a serious possibility, or run it on more conventional propellers, which are far more fuel efficient, to be honest. But the main thing of this is, as you probably noticed, the staggering amount of construction tentacles on it. They're advanced ones because I had problems with the more simple ones, and that does add a fair bit of crystal to the cost, but in total this thing has 100, yes, 100 construction tentacles on it. So yeah, this should be able to build something really, really quickly. In fact, let's give that a test. Make a blueprint spawner. Let's put one there. Spawn it out. Let's put that forward. Let's build a Warspite, should we? Or Wayfarer. The problem is they're both long designs, so they might clash. Hell with it. Let's build this. I never finished this, but it's the Driftwood Mark III. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. And I didn't mean to jump off into the ocean. Yeah, the entire purpose of this is to build something up at high speed. And I think it's fairly safe to say that that's what it's doing. I mean, just look at that. Look at that. It can add up to 100 blocks at once. Yeah. But yeah, once I get that finished, it's going to replace the constructors in terms of heavy-duty repair and building craft. There is going to be some clashing here, unfortunately, so it can't be helped. But, you know, not much to be done about that. This is the Driftwood Mark III. It's an attempt to take the Mark II design and upgrade and upgun it. It's got an increased prow at the front here. It's got the upgraded cannons, which are a bit more protected, although they're still pretty bad. And it's got these things on the side of it, because I was really attempting to up-arm it. When I was doing this, that was the original heavy turret design I came up with. It's not that efficient, to be honest with you. It is really not that efficient at all. In fact, it's let go and it's trying to sink. Oh well, yeah, something's breaking. This thing can't float on its own, really. So let's caps lock it. But yeah, if up here on the top of this turret, you can see how the turret is really not built with any kind of efficiency in mind. Yeah, I mean, just look at that. That is all there is to it. That is the sum total of one cannon. Not very good, is it? The idea was, really, if you look, to give it, not to increase its gauge really, but to give it a high rate of fire and hopefully special properties to overcome the small size, while keeping ammo use at a minimum. And I don't know how successful it is, because this entire design is compromised by the fact it's a quad cannon rather than a single cannon. It just isn't built for it, really. They're just weak cannons mashed together in some heavily armoured arrangement to try and do some damage, and failing miserably, in all honesty. Yeah, this is what became of the Driftwood. I never actually finished the design. But if I show you this... Oh dear. Yeah, that's the other problem with this, it just sinks straight away. It's just too heavy. It can't float at all. Maybe I'll cut the front off. But no. Well, this isn't going so well, is it? Yeah, there you go. The Driftwood Mark III has just promptly gone nose down in the ocean as soon as it got the chance. So it is far from being finished, and that's actually the reason why I abandoned using pure metal to make the hulls of my ships. I just couldn't get it to work at the time. Anyway, since I know Nathan, he probably wants to see that cannon now. So let's give him a new object, a new fortress. There we go. Let's give it a really quick block structure. There we go. Just enough to make it float, because I don't want it to just crash on me. The engine isn't going to be anything spectacular, it's just an engine block with crankshafts and cylinders, and you know, it's gonna work, but it's not a very good engine at all. Yeah, 25 for all that. Not really very good at all. Now then, yeah, that's the modified turret, that's the original turret, but this is the one that I'm about to show you. The... oh, wow. Yeah, that really started taking some energy out. Anyway, let's just very quickly show you what this can do. It was originally fitted onto a turret design, sorry, a fortress design, but I don't think I actually have it saved anymore, so, you know. The idea of this thing is Dakka, Dakka, Dakka. Fill the air with lead. And this is what it does. Lots and lots of little shots. It's very good at filling the air with tiny cannon shells, but the cannons themselves, they don't have enough parts to make these little shells truly effective. Like, something like this I would want to have a serious explosive payload, or armor-piercing payload on it, to make it worthwhile. But it just doesn't have any kind of effect. I mean, look at that. Just bouncing all over the place, doing nothing. Except blowing off that exposed bit of barrel just there. As you do. That's all right. It does have a fair ratio of explosive damage on it, so it can cause some significant harm, like that. But I don't know. I think I'm moving away from the small cannons at the moment. In fact, the Wayfarer was originally mounted with 2 massive slow-firing cannons in its forward arc, but then I took them off and just went for broadside combat instead with it. But yeah, I think I was only for like 5 minutes on this video, and I've probably been talking for about 20 or so. So, you know, that is as far as this is going to go. Because I still have some construction to do. I've recorded this instead of doing the campaign. So that's going to be today's video. This, what you're doing, instead of anything from the campaign. And when I do the campaign, this thing will be finished and actually functional. So I hope I've given you some entertainment, some design thoughts, and maybe not shown myself off a bit too badly. Enemy spawn. Give me a Steel Striders. There we go. Give me an Aphrodite. Give me an Aphrodite. Yep, there goes the fortresses and cannons and all over the place. So yeah, you know. Oh, wow! Just wow! Look at that! It's already tearing through the sides. Between them, the Warspite and the Reclamation Hub are they're just can opening this thing. Light armor is no defense against the cannons that I've got fitted now. Now the problem is those missiles, where are they going? That missile's gone way far away. But yeah, you can see, you can get the general idea. Anything big, that is what those turrets are designed to take out. And you can see what it's doing to this. I mean, let's just pop below the water here and look at the bow of this ship. Chock full of holes. The side, chock full of holes. Yeah. This is Iron Mark 3, and this has been What You're Doing. I'll see you some other time.